Alrighty, welcome to this video. In this tutorial, we're going to cover Adobe Animate CC, aka Flash. Adobe renamed their animation program that used to be called Flash. They named it Animate. I think, well, my personal opinion, it's because they wanted to get rid of the Flash name because it was starting to get too dirty of a word and they wanted to do something else. But anyways, it's called Adobe Animate CC for Creative Cloud. Open it up. In this video, we're just going to talk about all the drawing tools and just all the things you can do and what the stage is and just the basics of, I may slip and call it Flash, but I'm going to try to call it Animate. All right. So the first thing you do is you get here. Now, the beauty and the one really cool thing that Animate does is it creates an HTML5 canvas file. In other words, it used to be when you created Flash animations, you could only run them in ActionScript 3.0, and they could only be ran on the web if you had the Flash player installed, which was fine for computers, was fine for laptops. Where you started running into problems was mobile devices. So a lot of mobile devices don't have the Flash player installed on it, so they can't run these animations. They can't run the banners and whatever else is made in Flash. So Adobe realized that, and they've now made it so you can basically do everything you used to be able to do in Flash, but you can export it as an HTML5 canvas file. In other words, it'll work on anything, really, anything with a browser. All the browsers support HTML5, and they support the canvas tag, the canvas element, and so it exports to that, and then you can see it on any device. So that was a huge move. So yay for Adobe. So that's what I'm going to do is I'll select the HTML5 canvas because that'll make it be a lot more compatible in what I'm going to be doing. Now, mine may look a little bit different than yours. You can come up here to Classic. You can go, there's a bunch of different work spaces that you can pick. Classic is what I was on. We got Debug. There's Designer. So according to Adobe, this is what a designer would want to see. This is the kind of workspace they would want to see. Animator would want to see this. A developer, someone who's more into the code, will want to see something more like this. So I don't know. But you can do a new workspace. So you can put things wherever you want them, and then when you're done, you can just save it and go and do your thing. But I'm good with Classic. I've been using Flash for a long time, so I'm good with this. So really, all we're going to talk about is some hotkeys, and we'll talk about how to draw in Flash, and then also what the stage is and things like that. So I'm going to hit Control minus, that zooms out. This is the stage. This is where all the action is going to be happening. If you animate things out here in this gray area, you won't see it. So you can have things out here and walk in, so it'll have them walking in onto the stage. You can have that kind of stuff, but just be aware of whatever you want the person to see, it needs to be here. If you want the size to be a little bit bigger, you're going to have to go over here to Properties. If you can't see the Properties window, you can always come over here to Window. This is all the different windows that exist. So you want to make sure Property is here if you can't find it. So I can click and drag, and as you see, as I'm dragging with the mouse hold down, it'll change size, or I can just double click, type in what I want. It's always a good idea before you start to get kind of an idea of how big you want the project to be. The FPS is the frames per second. So as you can see over here, if I go to 24 frames, that's going to be 1 second. So that's 1 second of animation up there. So you can change that if you want. The stage, if you want to change the color of the stage, you can do that. A lot of people, what they'll do is just kind of draw a square and change it that way. And not the way you want to do that. Control Z, I just undid, or Command Z. What you'll want to do is just click here and then pick the color of the stage that you want it to be. Woo! That's some crazy stuff going on. So if I want it to be kind of a darker gray, there we go. We're good to go. Let's see here. Rest of this stuff's okay. All right, so this is the transform tool. You'll want to remember Q. You'll be doing that a lot. So if I come over here and draw this rectangle, I can come to the black arrow tool, select it, and I can hit Q, and that will allow me to resize everything. You'll be using that a lot in Flash, so Q, remember that. Hit escape to get out of there. Now, let's go over the two arrow tools. So the black one's basically the kind of selects, so I can select the fill if I want. It keeps the stroke. Once I delete it, I can come over here and kind of round things out as needed. So now I got this little blobby guy, whatever. Can click and drag, select it all, hit delete. Let's go back to the square. Now if I do the white rectangle tool, this it gives me points. I can play around with the points a little bit more. Where with the black arrow tool, I didn't really get that. I just got this so I could curve things out, but I didn't really, well, I guess I can do a little bit of the points. But the black arrow tool, for the most part, is used to select and play around with these, where the white arrow tool is more, it just kind of plays around with the points. Okay, and as you can see, when I'm playing around with these points, I get these handles where if you've used the pen tool at all, you'll be really familiar with these, but you're able to kind of grab these handles and mess around with these curves a little bit more. So that's been my experience with Flash, is the black kind of selects and the white plays around with different points around the draw sub-selection. All right. Now, if you have little arrows down here in the lower right-hand corner, that means there's more options. So to get to them, you just click and hold, just like you would in Photoshop. So you got the free transform tool. We already showed you that. That's so you can make things smaller, bigger, rotate them. So if I go here, then I hit that, and I can kind of come out here and rotate things as needed. Make things smaller, bigger, whatever. Another thing to pay attention to also in Flash is if I just click once, it grabs the fill and it doesn't grab the stroke. If I double click, it selects the whole thing. I see people doing that all the time, is they'll just click once, drag it, and they're like, oh, the fill. So you gotta always make sure you double click, and then it'll grab the stroke, it'll grab the fill, it'll grab everything. Okay. The gradient tool isn't doing anything, so that probably just means I'm foolish and I don't know how to use it. So, oh well. If you really want to know how to do that, go talk to Google. Google will tell you. I apologize. Well, why not? Well, may have something to do with this, where if I click this and I go to the fill, I can pick gradients. So I wonder if I pick a gradient, if that'll actually let me do something here. Yeah, there we go. So I picked a gradient fill, so now I have these things that I can play with that'll kind of mess with the gradient and give it an area on where it shows up, and can move it around and things like that. So there we go. Now I'm not as dumb as I thought I was. Okay, when you're transforming things, you can hold down Shift, and that will keep it uniform. If I let go of Shift, I can start going crazy and however I want. I can flip things around. Sometimes when you're drawing things, you'll need to flip it around because it needs to be on the other side. You can just double click, hit Q, hold down Shift, and now you just kind of flipped it. You may be able to do like rotate in here. Not sure, but that's how you can flip things around. All right. Lasso tool, pretty similar to Photoshop. You got the polygon, so you can draw kind of straight lines. When you double click, that selects, and then you can slice things off if you want. Took off the part that I selected. Lasso tool is just kind of freehand. Just select what you want. Magic wand. Don't know if I can do this. I think this would be more on pictures, but a magic wand's going to work just like how it does in Photoshop. Okay, so pen tools, like in Illustrator, I click, grab another point, I can click and hold, and I start getting those, these things I can play with. This is just adding tools, or adding things as I go, adding points. Okay, I can come here and I can add the anchor point, so I can add more points if I need to be able to draw with. I can delete them. Okay, so it's just depending on what you're trying to draw. But now once it's drawn, I can come with the white arrow tool and I can start playing around with these a little bit as needed. And I start getting those handles again. I can zoom in, Control plus. I can hold down the space bar, which gives me the hand tool, which allows me to kind of move it around when I'm zoomed in. So I'm holding down the space bar and I'm left clicking and I'm moving around as needed. So you can see when I get that little white thing next to it, I can click it, or I can just click it. So it's just a way to draw curves and things like that, and to get what you need there with the pen tool there. Okay, text tool is just that, typing out text. You can change static text, doesn't change. Dynamic text is something you would use when you start coding. If you need text to change as certain things happen, you got the different fonts here. There's a bunch of them. We could just throw in, I don't know, Verdana, whatever. Okay, that's really small. So I can select it, make it bigger, click and drag. I can drag that out, different colors. If you use fonts that aren't usually embedded in a browser, use some crazy font that no one's ever heard of, you can embed these fonts. And what that would do is embed the font inside of your application so that it can be used. This is where you would center things, just like in Word. Yeah, not a whole lot to say about the text tool. It's just, there you go. All right, you can draw the rectangle. Okay, you got the oval tool. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure what these primitive tools are. If you know, great. We have Polystar. Can draw that real quick. We can come over here and make the stroke bigger. We got the fill over here. We got the style. We can change to be dotted. You got width. I mean, all kinds of different things you can play around with. Pencil tool is just that. It just draws like it would with a pencil. I'm drawing with this little stroke here. So I'm getting kind of the dotted line look. The smoothing is just that. I can draw and you see it's kind of rigid and then I let go and then it smooths. That's what the smoothing does right there. But really, if you're going to draw something intricate, it's usually a good idea to draw it in Illustrator or Photoshop and then bring it over. And you can bring it over by going File, Import. And you can import it to the stage directly on here, or you can import it to your library, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So here's the brush tool. Okay, works really similar to the pencil tool. Looks like the brush has the smoothing enabled. Oh, that's the paint brush tool. Here's the brush tool. Okay, here the brush tool, you can get the different tips of brushes. You can add a custom brush shape. I'm sure you can get that online somewhere. The bone tool, what you do is you use it to give bones to something you draw. So if I were to draw this guy here, little stick figure dude. If you know anything about rigging with 3D animation, the bone tool is kind of that. Looks like it doesn't like strokes. So maybe you would need to do it with the brush tool. It's been a while since I've used the bone tool. But anyways, you draw something like that, and then you start giving him a bone structure to where he starts getting the bones inside of him, and then you're able to just kind of give him a skeleton and animate him as you would like a 3D animation. But we'll get into that later. Paint bucket tool, just he gives different fill to objects. The ink bottle tool does the opposite, gives a different stroke to objects. Eyedropper just picks up whatever color you want. So if there's a certain color that you want, the eyedropper tool will select that, and the eraser erases. The width tool is kind of cool, so I can draw a line here. Then I can come over with the width tool. Maybe it doesn't like that line. Let's give it like a different style here. Just do the solid. Okay. So I can go, hold on here, I can add a point to it, and then I can kind of click and drag out, and then it starts messing with the width. And I can grab another point, make it a little bit crazier. So it's kind of a quick way to mess with widths. You can get pretty ornate shapes pretty quickly. But all I'm doing is I'm adding these different points of widths here. Now I got a little ghost. So you can draw a line, and then you can start messing with the widths until you get what you need. Okay, hand tool we've already played around with. It's just moving the canvas around. All right. And for some reason, my 3D tool is just being annoying. So if I draw this, I'm a dummy, so here we go. This might, oh wait, yeah, I think these have to be movie clips. Yep. So I'm going to kill that. So I'm going to draw something here. Boom. I don't like the fill, so I'm going to change it to something different. Okay, so now I'm going to convert this to a movie clip. We'll talk about this in other videos, but I'm going to hit F8. Maybe that doesn't want to do it. Fine, whatever. convert to symbol, make it a movie clip. We'll call it 3D. And it still doesn't want to do anything. This is awesome. I love it when I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry, guys. I'm going to delete these layers. Okay, we'll call it 3D. Maybe it just didn't like that layer. I don't know. Boom. I'm going to save this. I'm going to grab a picture. Use this in another one. Import it to my library. I will grab it. I wonder if it's because I'm using Canvas. That might be it. I don't know. Let's check it real quick. So, save this as test 2. Yeah, I'm wondering if Canvas just doesn't have that ability, because I move over here to HTML5 Canvas and it grays out, but I come over here and it looks okay. So, boom. Let's convert that to a symbol, because I think that's what it wanted. We'll just call it 3D again. Alright, there we go. So it seems in HTML5 it doesn't like that. Yeah, so that's interesting. Something new learned. But anyways, you can do 3D type rotations. Looks pretty cool. But that seems to be only in Flash files and not HTML5. Huh. Okay, so anyways, you can flip this around, you can do like 3D type stuff, and you actually can animate this thing doing this kind of a thing, which is pretty slick. You can come over here, 3D translation tool, that just kind of moves it around. And you can see how it kind of moves in this 3-dimensional space. Kind of rotates a little bit. Anyway, so that's, play around with that. Sorry to waste all your time messing around on there, but you know, I'm always learning too, which is great. So you'll use this to kind of draw your stuff, and then really what you'll want to be doing is on Flash, the way you animate is you can only animate one symbol per layer. So on here, if I was having this fly in, I would want to call this like some sort of, I don't know, 3D panel or something. And then if I wanted to animate something else, like text flying in, I would need another layer called text, and I would need to make sure that it's on that layer. And so then I throw in text, right? Then if I wanted to animate something else, so if you have multiple symbols or multiple things on the same layer, you're going to start getting messed up and it's not going to work very well. So all of the symbols that you create are inside of your library. It's a really important place. This is where all your stuff is, your pictures, your any type of videos you're using, or buttons or animations or whatever is all going to be in your library. I converted this to a symbol, into a movie clip is what it's called, which we'll talk about later, and so it now is in my library. If I took this text and did the same thing and converted it to a symbol, it's going to show up there, and it'll show me what it is here. So as you get in and you start animating, the library becomes a lot more important. But it's just important right now that you get an idea and that you've seen it and you know that it's there. So Anyways, guys, hope that's a good little introduction to Flash. Sorry about the issues, but they happen. Any questions, let me know. Talk to you later.